Most people assume they are independent, free individuals who are unique and special.
We are all unique and special.
But how do we know if our thoughts and actions are actually our own? They could be merely predictable reactions determined by the programming that has been implanted in our head by others. The thought and action of a free individual is not predictable because it is creatively determined in each situation. This video is about conceptual intuition. It is part of a series called The Keys to Self-Motivation and Free Will. We are investigating the willing process to discover the keys to self-motivation and free will. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to not miss any videos in the series. The source of our knowledge is observation and intuition. While I am observing an object, I can also become aware of a conceptual intuition that springs from within and gives meaning to the object. The concept that corresponds to an external perception appearing within the field of my experience is given through intuition. The same is true of the conceptual content of an act of will, which is just as little capable of being deduced from the act of will itself. It is gained by intuition. Let's begin by looking at the part played by intuition in the act of perception. When I see a tree, I know it is a tree because of conceptual intuition. Our first and immediate impression of the tree already contains concepts that intuition has added. In the act of perception, the concept tree is selected from my conceptual system and added to my observation of the tree. This happens unconsciously in the formation of the perception that appears before me. What appears in the external world is the percept tree woven together with the concept tree. Normally, people are unaware that their observation has already been colored by their concepts and ideas. Since childhood, we gradually build up concepts of the objects that surround us. The universal concepts that make up our system of concepts are the laws, rules, and principles of things. From my experience, I learned that a rule of trees is that they are tall, have roots, a trunk, and branches. All concepts I have formed of particular trees merge into the universal concept tree and become part of my conceptual system. After the act of perception, I can study my immediate reaction to the tree and discover what concepts I have added. We can also consciously examine and reflect on the tree further to have new conceptual intuitions that add new meaning to the tree. Now I will show you a picture. What do you see? Did you see the orange man who was bad? Or did you see the greatest president ever? Your immediate reaction calls up the concept you have built up about Donald Trump. What is the source of your ideas about Trump? Were they formed by your own impartial research and objective critical thinking? Or were they implanted in your head by the media? Let me know your experience in the comments below. To discover the intentions of someone else, we have to listen to them without mixing in our own bias and see what conceptual intuitions arise. The cognitive bias that dominates politics these days prevents us from understanding the actions of others. Almost every action that is done by someone from the right is labeled racist or sexist by the extreme left. The extreme right labels actions on the left as the behavior of programmed robots.
30 minutes.
In 30 minutes.
Meet me to the left.
Meet me to the left.
If you would like to go to an office,
If you
would like to go to an office
to spend time with your senator, go to that office.
When the cognitive process is impaired by cognitive bias, we are unable to grasp reality. Then the world no longer makes sense, and we become confused. Grasping reality requires the proper working of conceptual intuition. But we can improve our thinking skills. There is a lot of information available about how to overcome bias and social conditioning by learning how to think. If we challenge our first reaction and remain open-minded, we can learn new things. The way to develop freedom is to further develop the processes of cognition. This is thoroughly discussed in the philosophy of freedom. In this video series, we are interested in understanding an act of will. When I act with intention, I select a principle for my conceptual system to guide my action by means of intuition. I am not limited to a single principle, but can select from all the principles in my conceptual system. To develop free will, it is important to know why we act. If we reflect on our action later, we can discover the principle that determined our action by means of intuition. Then we can ask, what is the origin of the idea that guides my action? Is it our own, or are we obeying a directive that has been implanted in our head by someone else? We cannot deduce the intention behind an action from the action itself. It can only be gained by the insight of conceptual intuition. In my own life, to understand why I act, I ask myself, why did I do this? Yesterday I went to the gym to exercise. I asked myself, why did you go to the gym, Tom? My answer was, to be physically fit. I then asked myself, why do you want to be physically fit? I answered, to live longer. Why live longer? I need to get the word out about the philosophy of freedom before my time is up. Why you? After many years of working with the book, I have things to share. Why? With each question, I was going deeper. The next answer reached the level of a conceptual intuition and revealed a new insight into myself. I answered, as an idealistic creative person, I have the need to express myself. This answer explained why I went to the gym. The ideal principle of creative expression is what ultimately inspired me to be self-motivated enough to go to the gym and exercise. It is important to ask ourselves, am I a self-motivated, free individual? In order to answer that question, it is necessary to review our actions so that we can understand why we act. To learn more, visit philosophy-of-freedom.com. The next video in the series, The Keys to Self-Motivation and Free Will, is about the idealistic will.